Boruto Chapter 79 was absolutely insane. This changes everything. We have a lot to discuss, from Kawaki taking over the life of Boruto, from Eida's new godlike abilities that somehow tie into Kaguya's ability, which we're going to get into later on in this video. And we also have an interesting tidbit in relation to Sarada's connection to Eida's powers as well, or just the Uchiha in general, which I found very interesting, so we're going to get into that as well. Now, the cover page itself is absolutely amazing. We already spoke about this in the spoiler review, but I really love Boruto's dynamic pose, and I really love the colors they used here as well because it allows the image to pop, so I really dig this cover page. Now, when it comes to the chapter itself, it starts from where we left off in the prior chapter with everyone going after Kawaki. Now, what I found very interesting here is that Sasuke is very keen on noticing what Boruto is doing. So we have Boruto having this conversation with Momoshiki saying, "I told you so, it's already started," and of course Boruto is realizing that something's wrong. But we also have Sasuke in the distance, and he's taking notice of what's going on. Now, this part is very interesting because in a prior chapter of Boruto, we see that Sasuke was able to sense Momoshiki's presence, so it could be that Sasuke sensed his presence again, but he didn't want them to notice for some reason. But we'll see how that plays out later on. Now, we see that Shikamaru is still trying to track Kawaki, so they're trying to pick up on his chakra, but because it has been erased, they can't detect him. And we then see that Shikadai, Chocho, and Inojin are also looking for Kawaki as well. Now, we then switch back to the scene with Boruto, and we see that Konohamaru is telling Sarada and Mitsuki to carry Boruto to the medic while he and Sasuke will join in the search for Kawaki. Now, what I found interesting here is that Sarada told Konohamaru to be very careful, Kawaki is seriously dangerous. Then Konohamaru replied saying, "I know." Now, the reason why I found this very interesting is that I feel like they're setting up Konohamaru's death, because I remember that flash forward scene with Kawaki standing over someone with blood on his face, and it seems like Kawaki has just killed someone. Now, people will say that that was probably foreshadowing Kawaki slashing Boruto's eye, but I feel like that isn't the case because Kawaki in this scene has Ishiki's horn, so that is clearly another version of Kawaki. So I feel like this might lead into Konohamaru's death or maybe Sasuke's, but we'll see. Now, Mitsuki is very upset about the situation, as we saw in the prior chapter, so he also decides to go after Kawaki as well. And then we have Sarada recalling when Mitsuki said that, "Suppose someone really were to try to kill Boruto, I really don't know what I will do," which is what Mitsuki said when Boruto died the first time. Now, Boruto detects that Mitsuki probably isn't thinking straight, so he sends Kawaki after Mitsuki as well. So now Boruto is by himself, which I found very weird in the spoilers because I'm like, Kawaki's trying to kill Boruto, why would everyone leave him by himself? It's kind of weird because Kawaki can just circle back. But I guess they're just thinking that, oh, maybe Kawaki wouldn't do that since he's low on chakra, that's the hypothesis. So I guess it's really fine, but I still find it weird, especially since Sasuke saw that Boruto transformed into Momoshiki just now. So why would you leave Boruto in that state beside Sarada? You know, like, these are not wise decisions, but I digress. Now we then switch over to the scene with Kawaki, which Shikamaru kinda predicted. Kawaki is low on chakra, so he's barely able to stand. He's also barely able to use his abilities, so he's basically ripe for the picking at this point in time. But as we found out in the prior chapter, Eida couldn't find Kawaki because he was in his shrunken state, but since Kawaki can no longer use his ability, Eida was able to find him pretty easily. She then just left the building and went straight after Kawaki and flew off, and we have Damien running behind Eida saying that he can't fly, don't leave him behind. So this entire scene was basically there to confirm that Damien can't fly because some fans were theorizing that he could. So Kishimoto just said, okay cool, I'm just gonna put in like a throwaway scene and you guys can just do what you want with it. So I guess that's it. Now we then switch over back to Shikamaru, who's having a conversation with Amado, and Amado is basically begging for Kawaki's life because again, Amado needs Kawaki to resurrect his daughter. So in his desperate attempt to do this, he reveals to Shikamaru that he has a shutdown code for Kawaki as well, which I did make a video on a few days ago explaining how Amado is the key to shutting down Kawaki because of this unique code. So we'll see how that plays out. Maybe because of what happens later on in the chapter that doesn't happen, but we have no idea if Amado is affected by the ability, but we'll get to it when we get to it. Now, as I said earlier, Eida was easily able to locate Kawaki since he's no longer shrunken. So we have Eida pulling up on Kawaki, telling him that she's on his side, which I find just very weird. Like, we need to know why Eida has this interest in Kawaki from day one. It's 100% weird. There's no explanation for it. It can't be just teenage love, bro. It has to be something deeper. It has to be something more. And just to be clear, that motivation wasn't revealed in this chapter. at all, so I guess we'll have to wait and see. Now basically what happens here is that Kawaki starts to unload everything on Eida. He says it doesn't matter, I don't care about what happens to me. Instead of me, protect the 7th. And it's kind of weird because she doesn't need to, since the 7th is in your dimension, you know, so you kind of sealed him away. So I don't know what's happening here, bro. I don't know if he's having like a mental breakdown, you know, but maybe it's talking about if he does release Naruto, then Eida should protect him. But it is a weird thing to say. But he goes on to say that if he doesn't silence Momoshiki while he still can, the 7th and the village he carefully protected, everything will be lost. I can't let that happen. If he's free, it will be too late. We'll never get him back. But despite this, he's his son, above all else, the 7th. And of course, he's referring to Boruto in this case. So basically a duality of Boruto and Momoshiki. So basically what Kawaki is saying is that you have two individuals in one body. Of course, you have Boruto, the son of Naruto, Kawaki does really care about. He calls him his brother. He believes that he's his brother. But at the same time, you have Momoshiki, who also occupies that body. And Momoshiki's stated goal is to feed Kawaki to the God Tree and destroy the entire planet. So Kawaki can't allow Momoshiki to gain control of Boruto's body and go on a rampage. So Kawaki's goal is to prevent all of that from happening. So it's a preventative approach. So he doesn't want to avenge anyone. He wants to prevent anything bad from happening. So that's why he wants to get rid of Boruto from now. Now he goes on to say that who in Konoha can kill him? He's the Hokage's son. Who's gonna guarantee that those on his side will turn against him? It's not just about karma for me anymore at this point. You're too important to me to leave you be. Of course, this is referring to the scene where Kawaki promised to get rid of Boruto's karma. But of course, now Kawaki has changed his plans to get rid of Boruto in general because they can't get rid of the karma. And based on the spoilers, it kind of made it seem like Kawaki was jealous of Boruto's life and he wanted Boruto's life. But based on these translations, it seems like Kawaki's just distraught at the idea of having to kill Boruto again. So he doesn't really want his life. Kawaki's real goal is to put Boruto in a situation where he can get rid of Boruto without causing pain to anyone else. So that mentality of Kawaki is basically what leads to what happens next. So then we have Kawaki basically grabbing onto Eida saying, why does it have to be him? Why does it have to be Boruto? And he's saying that instead of the Hokage's son, not even his sibling. If only he was an outsider, it would have been better, it would have been easier. If only he was just an outsider just like me. So again, it seems that Kawaki wants to make Boruto an outsider, not because he wants Boruto's life, not because he's jealous of Boruto, but because he feels like it would have been easier to get rid of Boruto if he was an outsider, not the son of the 7th Hokage who everyone loves. Now Eida was visibly kinda disturbed by Kawaki saying these things and also saying that Kawaki shouldn't say such things. So again, it seems like Eida isn't really evil per se, because if she was, she would have just said yeah, let's do that, you know, like yada yada yada. But she doesn't seem like she wants to do it. But again, like she's going so far for Kawaki, I need to know why. But I guess we'll find out later on. But then we have Eida holding on to Kawaki's face and looking into his eyes. And then we have this massive aura of chakra that starts to surround Eida, and then it shoots up into the sky in the form of Eida's Senringan. But what was interesting about this scene is that we saw the chakra of Eida travel over the entire village. We have Sarada noticing the chakra, we have Sumire, we have Damon noticing the chakra and saying that it's Eida's chakra. And then we have this big scene with the chakra covering the entire planet, which is absolutely insane, bro. Like this shows that Eida has massive amounts of chakra being able to affect every single person on the planet. It's absolutely insane. Now Momoshiki was able to sense exactly when this happened and he started to gloat immediately because this is what Momoshiki was waiting for all along, the moment where Boruto loses everything. And then he explained that the reason why Boruto lost everything is due to Eida's powers, which again, I made this video over 6 months ago predicting what was going to happen in the last few chapters, predicting that Naruto will be sealed in Kawaki's dimension and also that Eida's blue eyes might be responsible for Boruto losing everything, which they were. Now before we get into what Eida did and how she did it, we basically see that everyone has turned against Boruto. We first see that instead of looking for Kawaki, Shikamaru is now looking for Boruto, which is very weird. Now what I found interesting in this scene is that Sasuke seems to be unaffected because he seems to be confused as to why Shikamaru is looking for Boruto's chakra, but he isn't saying anything. And this kind of makes sense because Sarada also isn't affected, but we'll get to that when we get to the Sarada portion of this chapter. Now we see that Sarada and Mitsuki Momoshiki pulled up on Boruto, and all of a sudden Mitsuki goes straight into Sage mode and starts to attack Boruto, which of course comes as a surprise for Boruto and Sarada since they're not affected by Eida's ability. Then we finally get the explanation from Momoshiki as to what's happening with Eida's abilities. So Momoshiki basically says that everyone is coming to kill Boruto, everyone is after him. The reason why this is happening is because Eida has used her abilities to rewrite history. Then he went further in depth and explained that yes, this is the true nature of Eida's charm power, in quotations. He says that a divine power that even she cannot control, the result of the divine technique omnipotence. Momoshiki further went on to explain that the ultimate power that only the omniscient and omnipotent God can control, a divine technique within a divine technique. He then explained that it said that God used it in the process of creating the world, a programming language for creation, so to speak. The absolute will that materializes everything, that's omnipotence. He then said that it's not something that can be controlled by a mere girl who's not even an Otsutsuki. The true nature of Eida's charm power materialized by omnipotence, it is merely the result of Eida's latent desire. Alright, so this is a new recording session, so if my voice sounds different, that's why. Now Momoshiki then says it's understandable that one would conclude that this is a divine technique, and this phenomena that's happening right now is the embodiment of Kawaki's desire. He activated his omnipotence through Eida. Boruto, your position and that of Kawaki has been reversed. Now all of this might be confusing, and I guess we'll have to wait on the official translation, but based on what I'm getting here, it's saying that Eida's power comes from omnipotence. So this is why Momoshiki never recognized Eida's ability, Eida's charm ability, as Shinjutsu. The real Shinjutsu ability is omnipotence, which powers the charm ability. So basically how it's explained is that omnipotence is the will that allows you to manifest everything. So it's a reality warping ability that allows you to manifest your desires, and Eida's desire in this case is to be loved. So omnipotence, which manifests your desires, manifests this desire of Eida in the form of the charm ability. Now this part is a little confusing, but I think it makes sense depending on how you interpret it. So Momoshiki then said that this situation, the current situation, is the embodiment of Kawaki's desire. He then said that he activates his omnipotence through Eida. What this could mean is that Kawaki also has omnipotence. It seems like Momoshiki is saying that every Otsutsuki has omnipotence, but not everyone can control it. So it seems like he's saying that Kawaki's omnipotence was activated through Eida. And again, omnipotence is that absolute will that materializes everything, right? So either Momoshiki is saying that every Otsutsuki has the ability and Kawaki somehow activated his omnipotence through Eida, or it could be that Eida is the one with omnipotence and Kawaki was able to use her ability to manifest his desire, which I think is the more logical approach to it, since I doubt Momoshiki is saying that everyone has the ability. So it could be that Kawaki activated the ability by touching Eida, because again Momoshiki said that you have to be Otsutsuki to properly control the ability. So Kawaki being an Otsutsuki due to being Otsutsukified by Ishiki's karma allowed him to trigger Eida's omnipotence ability. Now I don't know if you guys watch or read Attack on Titan, but this is very similar to Eren, who has the founding titan, but he couldn't activate the power because he doesn't have the royal blood. So in order to activate the founding titan's ability, he does this by coming in contact with someone who has the royal blood. So I think there's a similarity there with how Eida's ability works if we go with the second interpretation. Now we then switch to a scene with Shikamaru trying to confirm what happened with Naruto again for some weird reason, even though Eida told him before what exactly happened. So I don't know why he's trying to confirm again, but I guess it serves the plot because Kawaki then tells Eida to tell Shikamaru that Boruto killed Naruto. Because you have to remember that what Eida initially reported is that Kawaki swallowed them up using space-time ninjutsu, so everyone is under the notion that they are still alive. But now Kawaki is telling her to tell everyone that Naruto is dead and Boruto killed Naruto. So basically, since Boruto is now Kawaki, everyone thinks that Boruto indeed killed Naruto and now they're going for the kill. Boruto. This will enrage everyone, right? Because Naruto is now dead. And to further explain why this happened and how Kawaki is able to do this, Momoshiki explained that it's people's memories that have changed, basically their shared recognition of Boruto and Kawaki, which is very important. He then said that people's consciousnesses are originally connected through chakra. For a god, it's not impossible to alter this. Don't you think about it? How many times have the memories of your mankind been tampered with? It was by the hands of the Otsutsukis who once became gods. By the way, omnipotence doesn't affect Eida and you because you're Otsutsuki. I already mentioned this earlier. The same goes for Eida since she's the caster. So this confirms that Eida is the one who casted the ability. So I guess the second interpretation of Kawaki casting the ability through Eida makes more sense. Now the reason why I found this very weird is that he's saying that the ability manipulates people's memories using their chakra. Now this doesn't account for like physical video evidence of Boruto being Boruto, like Boruto being on TV, Boruto being in the pictures and all that jazz, Boruto being in the physical records of Konoha or over the entire world as Naruto's son. So if it just affects people's memories, what about that information? Or is Momoshiki saying that even the physical media, people will perceive them as being Kawaki? So let's say Naruto has a video of Boruto and Himawari being kids, right? If someone views that video, that media, at this point in time, what they'll see is Kawaki even though Boruto is in the video. Like he's saying that the shared recognition of Boruto and Kawaki has been reversed. So it could be that even though Boruto is in the physical media, what people will see is Kawaki. So this could easily be a plot hole if not explained in that way, which I think makes sense. But then he also said something interesting about people's consciousnesses being originally connected through chakra. This doesn't really align with Naruto's universe because we know that Hagoromo gave them chakra, right? So that doesn't make any sense. They weren't originally connected through chakra. Or it could be that they weren't connected before and they were later connected through chakra, thus being originally connected through chakra. That's the original connection. Now this is somewhat convoluted because you know that Kaguya used a similar ability to wipe the minds of the humans back in the past after she used the infinite Tsukunomi. And we know that Hagoromo is the one who gave humans chakra years after. So it doesn't line up because if you need chakra to connect everyone to use the ability, then that means that everyone had chakra before Hagoromo gave them chakra, since you need chakra to use the ability and Kaguya used the ability. So it's kind of weird, kind of convoluted, but retcons will happen, you know, we'll see. Now Momoshiki also said that for some reason the daughter of the Uchiha somehow didn't seem affected. Then he said, well, generally the only ones who suffer by omnipotence are those people. Now this is very interesting because you know there's our will, whatever it may be. So again is that since the Uchiha aren't affected by omnipotence, they will be the only ones who remember the past. So look at it this way, it would be like someone changing the current timeline where you have deep connections and deep relationships with multiple people, but now because of the omnipotence they don't remember that. So you lose all of those connections and you're the only one who remembers the past timeline. So I guess you could say that that's how they suffer. But again, like we might get something more in depth or it might be very face value, we'll see. But anyway, we have the final panel of Momoshiki saying he's now the son of the Hokage who was raised in the village, Uzumaki Kawaki, and you who repays kindness with ingratitude, a lonely outsider who is being targeted by Konoha, just Boruto. Does that make sense? And that's where the chapter ends. So as I've said for like the third time, basically Boruto is now Kawaki and Kawaki is now Boruto, even though they keep the same name, right? So Boruto is now Boruto with no last name and Kawaki is now Kawaki Uzumaki. The chapter itself was very interesting. It revealed a lot, Eida having this omnipotence ability. I like to see how it plays out later on, even though I will say that Eida is kinda, I would say, she lacks purpose per se because we don't know what her real purpose is, but she doesn't come off as a villain, if you get what I'm saying. Like she was disturbed by what Kawaki was saying and she doesn't have control over the ability, so it activated automatically. So she didn't do it on purpose. Even though she reacted quickly to what was happening because she noticed the change, it seems that once the ability is used, she knows that it happened, but she can't stop it from happening. So the ability is very weird but cool at the same time, so I'd like to see how it plays out later on. Now let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. What do you think of this chapter, and let me know your expectations for the other chapter. So drop your theories and all that jazz down below and we'll address it later on. Also, if you did like the video, drop a like and subscribe to the channel for more Boruto and the JJK content, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out.